What is up, guys? This is the MLB Full Count Show by SportsMemo.com. First time host here. My name is Ronald Cabang, also known as UCapper. We have a solid guest analyst here today with Jeff Michaels and Dr. Chuck. How are you guys doing today? It's Monday. We got a small slate today. It's a funky slate today, but we're gonna find some angles here that we could cash together. Dr. Chuck, how was your weekend? How's everything going?
Solid weekend. Yeah, we had an up and down baseball week, but everything else, as far as outside of this show, was pretty excellent last week. So, hanging in there. We're back to the grind on $9 Monday with baseball plays, and yeah, like we're looking at the AL today. So
Yeah, 100%. $9 Monday. With that said, all daily packages are $9 only today, every Monday. I think every Monday. So head over to sportsmemo.com to see what packages are available from all the awesome cappers over at Sports Memo. Jeff, how was your weekend, man?
Good. I can't complain. Wasn't super eventful back over here, but we got some exciting things coming up in the next 2 weeks. I know the fans probably heard it from Joe DeVico a couple weeks ago, but that Machine Gun Kelly concert he was looking forward to is now coming to Cleveland on Saturday. So we'll be there this weekend up here, and then followed by a trip out to Vegas that I'm looking forward to. So,
man, I wish I could be there. Are you going to be there at Vegas, Dr. Chuck?
I will be there as well. And as far as the other side goes, I'm Team Eminem, so I won't be seeing the MGK concert, but
let me make it clear. Joe said something last time. The main reason we're going to this concert is because my wife is a diehard Avril Lavigne fan. So let me get that clear. She's basically the front runner to this show. MGK gets the headlines because we're in Cleveland, so he always gets the headlines in Cleveland. But there we go. That's the main reason we're going to this one. So I'm kind of right there with you.
There's the reason, Dr. Chuck. The reason there.
Yeah, I got you. I can't say I'm an Avril
Lavigne. Exactly. Well, with that said, it's time to make some cash, guys. We're going to the first game here, the Blue Jays and the Orioles, a nice little AL East divisional matchup. We got the Blue Jays with Kikuchi on the mound visiting the Orioles, who are throwing out Jordan Lyles. 3 games separate these two teams in that division, and the O's are just 2 games behind in the wild card. So this is a pretty important matchup here between these two teams. Last I seen, I think the Jays were minus 140 favorites, I believe, or around there on the road. And then the total is set at 9.5 right now. And most chops. Dr. Chuck, how are you seeing this game going?
Well, we talk a lot about Yusei Kikuchi, and so we like to always give props to Ski. I know Ron and Ski are tight as well, and so we know where Ski's money will be today. And I think maybe a lot of us are going to be on that same side. There's a few different things, and they just happen to be the exact same numbers flipped. But Yusei Kikuchi on the road, the Blue Jays are 1-8 in his starts this season. Orioles just also happen to be 8-1 on the run line as dogs in the last 9. And yes, that's the run line. I think the only way to go also would be the Orioles on the money line. I think, obviously, as Ron said, the shops are. I don't think the public is on board with this team yet. And I think it's still advantageous to take the Orioles. I think there's a reason that they keep covering these numbers is because I don't think anybody believes. And then the big news they make is they trade Trey Mancini, and Trey Mancini is lighting the world on fire in Houston. And so I think even more that emboldens the public to be against the Orioles. And then Jordan Lyles is Jordan Lyles, and the other team has that flashy offense with all the, killers up and down the lineup. And I can't imagine being on the Blue Jays in this spot. We were yesterday, took a rough loss yesterday because we stretched it to the run line and didn't just take the money line against the Twins. And that game devolved into insanity. And the Blue Jays just don't score when they need to score. And they especially aren't scoring for Yusei Kikuchi. And I don't understand the number on this total either. I have talked a lot about if it's 9, you probably are playing over. If it's 7, you probably want to play under, and that is as contrarian as it gets. I'd be on the Orioles in a couple different ways, and I think the Blue Jays are in a bad spot. They don't win the big games, and I didn't think this would be a big game. Probably anybody wouldn't have thought this would be a game in the first week of August, needing to beat the Orioles in probably every game they play this week. And so I think that's further pressure, and I would take the Orioles maybe straight up.
Nice look there. The Orioles straight up for Dr. Chuck if he was to bet this one. Jeff, how are you looking at this one? Are you agreeing here with Dr. Chuck?
Yeah, I think the one word out of everything that Dr. Chuck said that really stuck out to me was the flashiness. And I think that's really what is holding the books back from backing this Orioles team, that you're playing in an AL East division that we've been talking about for months already. The Yankees have lost 5 straight games. We'll talk about that later, actually, but Baltimore's won 5 out of their last 6, and they've won 21 out of their last 29 dating back to July 3rd. So I can't find much to argue on Kikuchi. This is just his 3rd start since he had that the IL stint, and he's only allowed 3 earned runs in 9 innings pitched in his last 2 outings, but he still has a 4.86 ERA on the year, and the team's just 6-12 in his starts on the year, regardless of whether he's playing at home or on the road. Mm-hmm. But when he is away from home, his ERA is 5.75. So he can't, as Dr. Chuck said too, Toronto can't put the runs up when they need to, especially with Kikuchi on the mound. And Kikuchi can't seem to limit the amount of runs that he's given up. I mean, Lyles has a 4.4 ERA on the season, but the team's won his last 3 starts and they've won 5 out of his last 6. So when you're putting up numbers like that, it's hard to argue with what the team's doing as a whole. And in his last 3 starts, it's only a 2.12 ERA for Lyles. So coming off a win for Toronto doesn't exactly help them either. The team is 1-10 in Kikuchi's last starts off a win. And Baltimore's 13-5 in the second half of the year against teams batting 265 or worse like Toronto is. So I'm going to get a little more into it with my best bet, but I may even be apt to jump out with Dr. Chuck and sprinkle a little bit on the money line here with Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you guys here. The way that I was looking at it as well is, I mean, the same thing, right? We're fading Kikuchi here, specifically on the road. Blue Jays are 1-8 straight up on the road when Kikuchi starts. Teams are averaging 5.11 runs in those games compared to 3.56 for the Blue Jays. You say already lost to the Orioles earlier this season as minus 225 favorites as well. So I'm with you guys. Only way I could look here is towards the Orioles. But yeah, with that said, with our second matchup of the day is a matchup between the 2 bottom teams in the AL West. This is going to be maybe a barn burner. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I don't discriminate when it comes to betting, guys. Sometimes you can find a lot of value with the ugliest game on the board. We got the Angels with Jose Suarez visiting the A's with Cole Irvin. What are you guys seeing today? Jeff, let's start off with you.
There's not many people that probably would have came into this season and said at this point right now, we would be comparing the Angels as one of the last place teams in their division to the Orioles as a team that's potentially fighting for a playoff spot coming into it now. But, I think the big thing that sticks out to me in this one is going to be looking at the total. I mean, Oakland has struggled at home against lefties. They're just 3-14 this year. So that gives me something a little to decide on the Angels, but neither team has been able to really score at all recently. The Angels have Suarez on the mound. He's got a 4.99 ERA this year, but his team's just 4-7 over under in his starts. So most of the runs that he's allowing in these games are a majority of the runs that are being put up as a whole in these games. And he's 3-0 to the under against the Athletics in the last 2 years. So they're not a team that has been able to get his number like a lot of other teams have recently. And Irving on the mound, there really hasn't been a better pitcher in the last 2 years when you're talking about over-under numbers in terms of sticking to the under. I mean, he's 5-14 in his starts this year over-under, which includes 3-7 at home. This is his 8th start against the Angels, and he's posted a 3.00 ERA. Under a 3.00 ERA at 2.93, and the team's 1-5-1 over under in his last 7 starts, including 4-0 to the under in the last 5. I even at a 7.5 with these 2 pitchers on the mound, regardless of what Suarez's ERA says, I don't think I don't think either team will be able to put up enough runs to be able to get over an 8-run total. I'm looking at 3-2 game maybe. So I'm liking the under on this one if I'm putting anything out on it for sure.
Yeah, both teams struggling offensively. You know, the A's specifically against left-handers at home. Dr. Chuck, what are you thinking on this one?
I promise none of the three of us actually spoke other than conversing with our best bets. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about the Angels that it's just insane. And the Athletics are turning into, even with a few spurts, exactly what Billy Beane planned. This is what they do. And as frustrating as it can be, Ron brought it up. You can't discriminate. That's what Vegas does, is equalizes the slate. It's not just, you can't take the Athletics, they suck. Well, that's what Vegas is here for. But the number that stuck out to me exactly, and Jeff took the words right out of my mouth, whoever was going to go first was going to get to it. This is his 20th start, and there's been 5 overs. Speaking of which, the only thing I would worry about is that the books are catching up to the Angels, because since the All-Star break, they've had 17 games, and they have 8 overs, 8 unders, and a tie, and a push on that. And the problem is, I think I'm still here, right? And the problem is they're only averaging 3.5 runs, and they're still going over. Not exactly allowing the other team to score a bunch of runs either. They're allowing the other teams to score 4 runs. And so while I immediately saw this and thought under, when you look a little bit deeper into it, it does worry me just because of the fact that they are going over half the time and still no one's scoring. And so, you know, it doesn't take a lot here to accidentally go to extra innings at 2-all or 3-all and get burned by such a number. And so I would definitely want to go under if it goes up to the 8, because no one's going to want to take an under in an AL game, no matter what they think at this number. Maybe it's an even bigger play because you can worry about pushing. But yeah, I mean, Cole Irvin basically, like Jeff said, is you play under or you pass. And it's crazy to say that, but it's partially because he can get the job done enough and have no run score for him as well.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that under. I mean, both of these teams are struggling. Specifically, we talked about the A's against left-handed pitchers at home. One thing that I meant that I caught on earlier today was when I was looking at trends. A's are 0-7 on the first 5 run line and 1-6 straight up on the full game as home favorites versus those starting left-handed pitchers. So that, you know, that correlation of not being able to hit is going along with their record. You know, they're not getting the wins. But you know, the Angels, like you guys said too, they struggle offensively. So it's tough to look at those games. And that's in that sense, when both teams are struggling offensively, you want to look at the starting pitcher. But if you can't figure out who's going to win, see how many runs are going to be scored. So looking towards that under with you guys is a solid look. We'll see if those trends here on the A's side kind of continue to fade. So we'll see how that goes. Our last game here is the Yankees and the Mariners. I think this is going to be a really good matchup. You know, the Yankees are visiting the Mariners tonight. They got Jameson Taillon on the mound, and then the Mariners, they have Logan Gilbert, their young guy here, out there for them tonight. You know, I think this is a really great matchup, evenly matched. I think from a starting pitcher perspective, but maybe a little bit different on the batting perspective. But they're going to be in a pitcher's field. How are you guys looking at this one? You know, Dr. Chuck, let's start with you.
Yeah, you mentioned it. The more I looked into this, the more I think I would just be far too nauseous to hold a ticket on a side in this game, because we mentioned it at the outset. The Yankees are reeling right now, and I don't quite know if we're getting more of the a lot was made of the April and May Yankees, and did they just get out too hot, and can any team sustain this, et cetera, et cetera. And then yesterday is just a microcosm of, if you're going to tell me, like, the Yankees cannot be losing games where they score 9 runs, where Aaron Judge goes absolutely insane, is solidifying his MVP case, and they lose the game because they gave up 12 runs on the other side with their trade piece and on the mound. And, you know, a lot was made of the fact that Cashman didn't get Castillo, and the day he lost out on Castillo, he reminded the fans on Twitter that a year ago he got Anthony Rizzo, and then he went and got Frankie Montes. And I said at the time it was a big drop-off. I like the kid, but it's a big drop-off. And yes, I'm a homer on Luis Castillo, but the dude's a stud. And I think that it's just a big deal. I think that there's going to be trouble. The Yankees can put up the runs, but they can't score. And I think if they're going to face a situation, they needed to beat Wainwright. They needed to stop that sweep yesterday. And I can't imagine what it's like to know they're reeling against their own division now, let alone home field and things like that. The Astros obviously beat them as a whole on the trade deadline, and I think they know it. And there's a lot of things going on. I would hate to be against Logan Gilbert, but I'd also just hate, as much as the books are begging you to take the Yankees, a lot of times that's the case and it doesn't work out for the books, for the public to fade that, or for any of us to fade the public in that situation. Because if you're going to get the Yankees at even money, it's a really good deal just with their potential. And so I couldn't possibly, if I wanted to take something extremely as contrarian as it gets, I would trust Tyone and Gilbert to shut these two teams down, and I'd probably go under the 7.5. But considering this toss-up, and Ron hopefully will maybe give a little bit of insight on his team here, I think the moment's big for the Mariners as well. And so it would be really hard to swallow thinking I had a good beat on the side and to just get hammered and realize how stupid it was to have done that.
Yeah, first off, thank you for Castillo.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, the total
I
has
feel like
gone.
I joked last week. I got Mariners shit because we became the Cincinnati Reds West. So I'm in. No, I love it. So.
Yeah. And the total has gone up from 7.5 to 8. So it's interesting to note that the public or the books are saying that there's going to be some runs to be had today with these two pitchers on the mound. Jeff, man, what are you thinking? Do you agree with that line movement, or are you taking a side on this one?
I actually got my $9 plays I got a 2-for-1 out on my $9 today, and it's actually the side and total on this game. So I got an opinion on both sides, but
nice.
I'll give you a little This is only the 5th time since the start of 2020 that the Yankees have lost 5 games in a row. And the first time since August of last year that ended up going to 7. So this is newfound ground for them. But the last time that they won a game was the opening game of the series against the Mariners. Now, I don't know if that has anything to be said after a 5-game mishap in the middle, but hey, they took them down in the opener last time. And this is, to Dr. Chuck's point, this is the first time all season that the Yankees have put up 8 or more runs and lost the game. Mm-hmm. So, I do think I'm going to talk total more than I'm going to talk sides, but I think that this is a case kind of opposite of what we kind of just said about the last game, that Irvin has been an impressive pitcher, but the lack of production has kept him under the total. It's kind of surprising to look at, even to me, that when you look at Talon's recent starts, he's in his last 3 starts against Seattle, he's 3-0 to the over. He's 12-3 to the over as an away favorite of minus 110 or more in the last 2 years. And he's 16-6 over in the last 2 years on the road, not to mention 4 out of his last 5 starts. So both these pitchers actually just faced off against each other in the last time that it was the second game of the previous series that these two teams matched. So it was one that Seattle took the win, but in their last 10 games, New York's 6-2-1 over under in their last 9, and Seattle 6-2-2 over in the last 10. So I don't know. With how I saw those bats wake up for the Yankees, well, maybe I shouldn't say wake up because they've been on the rough patch, but they've still been able to put up those runs. Both these teams have an offense that has shown that once they, can figure out the pitcher, they can really get things going. So I'm actually looking at the over on this one. I think that the trends that Talon's been putting up and the history between these two teams and the uncanny need for the Yankees to continue to win, even with 70 wins on the season, I think is gonna put up some offense for these two teams. Now, I think some of that may come on on the bullpen, so I do like it for the full game. I wouldn't play a total on the first 5 in this one with these two starting pitchers out there, but I think for the full game, I like that total going over the 8, even with these two guys on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk you off of that either. I mean, the Yankees, they do hit righties against on the road a lot better than they do against lefties, and you have Gilbert here. I mean, he's a young pitcher. You could see in these spots, and especially when games need to count, maybe that's something that we need to watch with Gilbert as far as that goes. Moving forward on the season, and we could probably see some runs to be had here. The one way that I was looking, I know you said maybe not the first 5 over, but a lot of the trends that I was looking at with these specific pitchers actually trended towards the over in the first 5. So that was one way that I was looking at it. Then now you're kind of talking me off. So, but I didn't put money on it. And this is the good thing about these shows when you have other amazing cappers like you guys, you get to hear different angles from other people, and that's what is these shows are all about, and why I appreciate these shows. So. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not blaming you if it goes over and I didn't bet, but maybe sort of, we'll see how it goes.
Judge.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, those are our 3 games, guys. Real quick before we go into the best bets though, you see that little scrolling bar down there with the special discount. You can use the discount code BBall279 to get the rest of the MLB season for only $279 from your favorite capper or cappers. If you want to get more than one or multiple, whatever it is. The current regular price is at $415, so you're getting a good discount to get the rest of the MLB season. And with so much data and information already available post All-Star break, this is the best time to get us cappers because we have the most information possible. This is when we can strive in the MLB late in the season. We can find these angles with all the information that we have. So definitely take advantage of that. And also, again, we talked about earlier, but $9 Monday. Jeff Michaels already mentioned he has a 2-for-1 on his $9 play, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Chuck probably has something up as well. So definitely check the site there, sportsmemo.com, $9 Monday. Now it's time for the best bets, guys. Jeff Michaels, I think I said I was going to start with you. So go ahead, talk about your best bet, and if you have it, whatever you have up on SportsMemo for your premium clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. I gave you guys a little scoop. You actually got a little sneak peek of one of my $9 plays, but hey, for $9, you got another one out there too. So still worth it at $4.50 a play. That's what a stripper on the Boulder Highway, as Joe D'Amico likes to say.
Joe would say that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So hey, maybe I'll have to stop in Colorado on my way to Vegas next weekend. But for my best bet today, I'm headed back to our first roundtable game, and I couldn't stay off them. I was trying so hard not to just have everything I had to say go in that first roundtable game. But I like this Baltimore Orioles team plus the 1.5 against Toronto today. They're coming off that tough loss yesterday to a Pittsburgh team that they probably should have beaten. But there's even a legitimate chance that I think the Orioles take this one straight up with Kikuchi on the mound. The guys touched to it before as well as I did. But when you look at Kikuchi on the run line, he's just as bad, if not worse, as the numbers as he's had already. And Toronto as a whole, they're 1-12 on a -1.5 run favorite coming off a 1-run win. And they're just 6-12 this year as a road favorite coming off a win in general. So a 1-run win is tough to bounce back from for them, but any win is, I shouldn't say bounce back, excuse me, but any win is tough for them to continue on with now. And you got a competitive division all around you, like a Baltimore team that's striking without Trey Mancini anyway, but they've dominated left-handed pitchers on the run line. They're 30-10 this year, winning 75% of those games, and they're winning those games straight up by 1 run on average. So most of the time, you don't even need that run line. They're 28-16 on the run line against the division. And when you combine those two together, you get a Baltimore team that's 20-4 on the run line against divisional left-handed pitchers when the line's under +200. So you're winning, again, 75% of the time on those plays. And in the last 7 games, this Orioles team has woken up again with their bats. They're hitting 260 in the last 7 games, just under 260, excuse me. And while some people, 260 doesn't always seem the most impressive, it's a huge step up from their 235 team batting average this year. And it makes a big difference when in the last 7 games, they're allowing opponents to hit just 223, which has resulted in a 5-2 record straight up and against the spread in the last 7 games. So having Lyles on the mound is one of their better guys. And again, fading against Kikuchi on the mound, my best bet of today is on that run line play on Baltimore.
Yeah, I love that look a lot. I mean, I can't, the Orioles there in that spot specifically against this team, I definitely believe in that run line there. And then you're also talking about how we were talking about fading Kikuchi. So that's always a good way to look at it as well. With that said, Dr. Chuck, your best bet, take it over. Oh, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Bill. You're on mute.
Thank you. Fade the Kikuchi. Doesn't take a whole lot. There you go. Doesn't take a whole lot to do that. Apologies to our new Far East friend Jesse. Your team didn't bring it this year enough. I don't think. I think you probably are going to lose those bets to Joe D'Amico, unfortunately. So I was kind of with you, thinking that you might usurp the Yankees this season, but it doesn't look like that. I love Jeff's pick. We try not to duplicate, obviously. So I'm going with something different. I still like this play. Jeff's play is probably one of the best free plays that you could give out. But here's a list for you. Athletics, Nationals, Pirates, Royals, Tigers. I'm super anal, so that's in alphabetical order. The only teams this season that have not been favored by $1.80 or more. And there's a team on today's slate that has that line as a favorite and was recently added to that list as the last time Keegan Thompson pitched. The Cubs were added to that list, and they won straight up and on the run line as that big of a favorite. And these are the kind of things that I like to circle and check on and monitor, because why is this the case? Now, the Nationals are one of the teams on that list that has not been that big of a favorite. They made waves last week in adding all kinds of 2025, gravy situations, but that's not for right now. And Anibal Sanchez is not for right now. And his FIP has been 7+ for 3 starts in a row. The situation here, I don't love taking a home team on the run line, but it's an unbelievable advantage. Keegan Thompson has been one of the better pitchers for the Cubs, and should get that run support, because we talked about, Jeff reminded me right before the show, the Cubs are adding guys. They didn't trade Contreras. They didn't trade Happ. I don't know what they're doing, because obviously the tank session is off, and maybe they have a whole different idea. They do have money, so maybe they could just spend all their money in the hot stove and try and be a contender again in 2023, and maybe that's the situation. Or maybe it could go the other way. But right now, they're fielding a team that's a whole lot better than I thought it was going to be last week. And to beat the Nationals by 2 runs is not a lot. They're not the Phillies, but I don't even know if the Phillies have to be the Phillies to do what they've been doing to the Nationals. And so I just think it's a bargain play here. A lot of the situations, like I said, if they're telling you to take a side and you see a team's only done this once all season, this is a lot of games in baseball. So it's a lot of games for the Cubs to have only done this once. And so I like to do them again tonight. And I think 5-2, 6-2 is the worst case scenario.
Yeah, great breakdown on that best bet there. I for one, I agree too that Jeff Michaels stole the best bet, free bet on the show. So I also can't give that out, but I'm gonna go with one of the games that we did talk about earlier. I'm looking at the Angels here on the money line. Actually, I can't see why. Obviously, one of these teams has to be favored, and it was Oakland just because of Cole Irvin, but their struggles against starting left-handed pitchers is pretty apparent. They're batting under 200 at home against starting left-handed pitchers, averaging less than 2.7 runs per game. in those spots as well. So they're not. I mean, at least the Angels are able to hit lefties on the road, with some support. 4.33 runs per game so far this season on the road against starting left-handed pitchers. So at least there's that for the Angels side. From a trend perspective, I think I mentioned this earlier, but 0-7 on the first 5 run line for the Oakland A's here as home favorites versus starting left-handed pitchers. I just don't think they're going to get enough run support here in this spot. So I'm going to go with the Angels on the money line as my best bet here. Yeah, and with that said, hopefully we cash all 3 of these best bets, guys. This was an awesome show. Great breakdowns from all, I feel like from everyone here on the panel. And, this is the end of the show. This was my first hosting on SportsMemo as well. Hopefully everything went smooth and great. You guys also obviously did a great job with your breakdowns. Last thing to be said, head over to SportsMemo one last time, $9 Monday, and we'll see you again tomorrow.